Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What's Up Wednesday. I'm BJ Myers. Last week, we kicked off our July theme, Celebrating Community Power, by talking about how strong communities are built when people work together. Today, we're going to look at one of my favorite examples of community power in action, Operation RoundUp. For many members, it's something they signed up for years ago and may not think much about today. But every month, those spare pennies and nickels are helping improve lives throughout Southeastern Indiana. Recently, our Operation RoundUp Board of Trustees met to review grant applications and award funding for the first round of 2026 grants. Today, we're going to take you behind the scenes of that process and talk about how those decisions are made. But first, what's happening this week? I hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July weekend. County fair season is beginning to wind down, and I want to thank everybody who's stopped by our booth throughout June and early July. Whether you came to ask questions about fiber internet, learn about our energy programs, or simply stop by to say hello, we always appreciate the opportunity to connect with our members face to face. Those conversations are one of my favorite parts of the summer because they remind us that cooperatives are built on relationships. Now let's jump into our feature story. Today we're talking about Operation RoundUp and investing in our communities. And joining me today is Bryan Miller, VP of IT and Diversified Services here at the REMC, and one of the newest members of the Southeastern Indiana REMC Operation RoundUp Board of Trustees. Bryan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me today, BJ.
All right. Well, you and I had the opportunity to serve together during this year's grant review meeting, but this was your very first time participating in the process. So going into that meeting, what were your expectations and what stood out to you once we started reviewing those applications?
I would say I really didn't have any specific expectations going into the meeting other than I was excited about the opportunity to be able to provide funds to the community based upon their participation in Operation RoundUp. What stood out to me is the diversity within the group of individuals that were on the board. I think that was probably the thing that, I don't want to say surprised me the most, but the thing that was probably the most beneficial for our membership to make sure that money went to the right place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of different backgrounds
Exactly.
come into play.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, one thing that I always appreciate about serving on the board is that we don't simply just read the applications and say yes or no, but we spend a lot of time discussing those requests individually. And from your perspective as a new trustee, what impressed you about those conversations?
I think the in-depth detail of those conversations is what impressed me the most. The thing that probably a lot of people don't know about Operation RoundUp is the number of grant applications that we get. We were, if my memory was correct, we had 84 applications and we were giving away over probably $75,000. So with that, everybody took great pride in making sure that we evaluated every single grant application to make sure it was being fully vetted and the money was going to the right places for the right people.
Mm-hmm. Whole lot more requests than we had money to give away.
Exactly, yes.
Something that came up repeatedly throughout our meeting was the mission of Operation RoundUp. And even when we're looking at those organizations that are doing really good work, we kept coming back to that one question. Does this project fit the mission of Operation RoundUp? Why is that so important?
Well, I think with our very large service territory and the large number of people that are represented in Operation RoundUp, be it our members, which just shy of 30,000 members being represented or putting into the RoundUp money pool. Making sure that we focus on that mission means that we are being good stewards of those funds that are being appropriated to those people applying for those grants. And I think one of the things that surprised me with the mission was we really focus on providing those resources to the organizations that are affecting the greatest number of our members. And I'm going to throw out a few things that kind of pop into my mind. We really focused on a lot of food pantries. We focused on school and community groups. We focused on like EMS and fire departments, the things that are really core to the function of a community and making sure the community can live and breathe in a environment that really allows for growth.
Yeah, I know we had a few applications that seemed like they really only benefited a handful of
Exactly.
people. And while they're good organizations doing good work, it's just the impact wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, you bring something up that we talked about a lot, and I'm not specifically focusing on the mission, but focusing on the dialogue that took place in the room is how many people is this going to affect? And we had some really good applications, but it was only going to affect a handful of people. I'm going to say maybe 10 or 12. And they, be it the board as a whole, wanted to make sure that the greatest number of people is being affected or being positively affected. So I think another part of that is we got a lot of some applications that were focused on maybe project improvements, maybe building fences, possibly putting an addition on, construction-based applications. And that's one part of the mission that we really focused on, that even though those are good projects, we really want to make sure the money goes to things that are not construction based. So that's one part of the mission we did focus on, and we eliminated some of the grants based upon that.
I know I noted to myself to make sure as we're promoting Operation RoundUp grant applications in the future that we highlight that information a little bit better so that people understand exactly what we're looking for.
Yes.
And making sure that it's a good fit, because we feel bad to say no.
Yes.
All right. Well, this year's grant cycle was especially exciting because Hoosier Energy contributed an additional $25,000 to the community fund. And you were right, $75,800 was what we had eligible to give away. So that really allowed us to support a lot more projects than we would have been able to, or that we've been able to in previous years. So in your opinion, how did that impact the board's discussions and decisions?
Well, first off, I want to say thank you to Hoosier Energy for providing us that $25,000. So that went a long way to be able to reach the additional grants. The thing I want to throw out there is some people within this podcast may not necessarily know who Hoosier Energy is. And Hoosier Energy is the power supplier for Southeastern Indiana REMC. And the best way that I might kind of explain that is you being a member, you are a portion or an owner of Southeastern Indiana REMC, and Southeastern Indiana REMC is a partial owner of Hoosier Energy. So you are a part of a co-op being Southeastern Indiana REMC, and we're a part of a co-op, be it Hoosier Energy. So that's kind of a quick way to explain that. So you pay your power bills to us, and we pay the power bill to Hoosier Energy. So that's kind of why they're giving us money. But to kind of reflect on how that helped within the grant process, having 84 grants and $74,000 or $75,000, that really allowed us to provide more money to the communities that we serve and help support them. So a big thanks to Hoosier Energy for that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just thinking back historically, and I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but typically the amount that we have to grant is closer to $50,000. So, I mean, it was quite a boost.
Yes.
And very much appreciated for sure. Well, even with that additional funding, there were still difficult decisions. And as someone experiencing the process for the first time, what was the hardest part for you?
Telling somebody no. I mean, you're not specifically telling them no to their face, but still you're saying that your grant application is not worthy enough to get the money. And to be honest, all 84 applications were worthy of funding, and it's kind of a hard process to just say no to some because they're all community-based organizations, nonprofits doing good things throughout the community. So That's probably the most difficult part.
Yep, I have to agree with you. I think as I go down through, everybody has their soft spot, right? And so as we're going down through there are things I think, this is going to be a no-brainer, but then it turns out to be one that we set aside and come back to and discuss quite a bit. But it's hard to tell people no.
Yeah, I want to talk about the point that you just brought up and to kind of go through how the cycle works. We will run through those grants the first time, and in running through those, there's some that really stand out that you want to give the money to. And this time, one that kind of stood out was we really wanted to make sure some of the funds went to your local EMS and fire departments. That was one of the core things that the board was focused on.
Yeah.
So
public safety.
Yeah, the public safety aspect. And in going through that, we could weed some of those out pretty quick, and we would earmark the other ones thinking, well, we want to come back and look at that. So it was a situation where some were granted quick, and then there was a lot of thought that went into the others. So it isn't like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. It's more like these are the ones we want to hit for sure, and then we go back and really dive into the others.
Yeah, budgeting.
Exactly, yes. Not enough money for everyone, unfortunately.
And you mentioned the construction projects earlier, just not fitting the mission of the Operation RoundUp program specifically. We wish we had enough funding to support every request. So those are difficult conversations to have. One thing I'd like members to know is that every application does receive careful consideration. No decisions are made lightly. And I think you expressed that very well. But as we wrap up today, what gave you confidence in the whole process?
I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I really want to make sure I drive it home, is the diversity of the board. And one, from the outside looking in, I mean, I'm familiar with Operation RoundUp. I knew how Operation RoundUp worked, where the funds came from, all of that. But I never sat in a boardroom and helped decide where those monies went. So this was totally new to me. And the thing that I really, really liked was, like I'd mentioned, the diversity of the board and the geographic diversity of the board. Everybody here may know, but how it works is we have representatives from all 7 of the counties that we serve. And there is a lot of value in that because somebody in Franklin County is familiar with something that somebody in Jennings County is not. Somebody in Jennings County is familiar with something that somebody in Dearborn County is not. So when these grants come up, you have somebody, and I don't want to say somebody representing you, but somebody that understands what's going on in that county and how that money can best be used. And that's the geographic aspect, but we have board members that have county offices. We have board members that are have businesses that touch really multiple counties. So you get a really good they have a good understanding of just the underlying currents within those counties and where the money can probably make can make the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm. Something else I don't really have in my notes here, but just kind of clicked in my mind as you were talking. Maybe people don't realize this. Operation RoundUp grants can be granted to organizations that are not necessarily members of the REMC,
yes,
or just serving members. It's really about serving the communities, the 7 county communities.
Yep.
that make up the REMC service area.
I think it's fair to say that we're really looking as an REMC to serve our members. And we realize that our members travel throughout that 7 county service territory. And just because maybe that organization is located in North Vernon, that may be located in Madison, they may be located in Brookville, they are still serving our core membership because our membership still goes there. The membership is paying their bill to us, and we recognize that just because that organization doesn't take electric service from us does not mean that they're not serving our members.
Absolutely. And I think that's important to share just for a good understanding, especially for those people who are our members and are contributing to the Operation RoundUp funds. And that does lead me to want to talk about the program. So what would you say to members who voluntarily participate in Operation Roundup each month?
Your money is being well used by people that are very focused on making sure they're good stewards of your money. And I'm going to go back to the one question that you asked or mentioned in there about the mission. That was one thing that kept going or coming up. And that showed me that those individuals in that room were focused on making sure it went to the right places based upon them really reflecting upon that mission statement.
Right. And I mentioned earlier that everybody has a soft spot. So just because I have a soft spot for a specific organization, if what they submitted didn't meet the mission of the organization or of Operation Roundup, then we were unable to fund it.
And I'm going to bring up something else. Something I noticed within that meeting was it was okay to say no. The overall group respected one another, and just because this one wasn't granted, everybody was willing to engage in the next one and just kind of move forward. So it was just a very, very thoughtful group that did a great job making sure that the members were represented well, because ultimately those individuals are representing our membership, and they were making sure our members were represented well and the money went to where it needed to go to.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of putting it, Bryan. That's good. Well, thank you for your willingness to serve on the Operation Roundup Board of Trustees and for sharing your experience with us today.
Sure.
I know I kind of put you on the hot seat as the new guy, but, sometimes I think fresh eyes and fresh perspective bring a lot of value, and it's nice for people to hear that. So thank you for being honest and open and sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
I know our members are going to appreciate hearing about how seriously the board takes this responsibility and the investment and the contributions back into the communities. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Having served on the Operation Roundup board for several years myself, I can tell you these meetings are never about finding reasons to say no. They're about making sure every dollar entrusted to us by our members is invested where it can have the greatest impact. That's a responsibility the board takes very seriously. And one of the things I love most about Operation Roundup is that it reminds us what cooperatives are all about. No single member could fund every worthwhile project in our communities, but together we can accomplish amazing things. Most members contribute less than $1 each month, yet collectively, those small contributions become thousands of dollars supporting organizations that improve lives every single day. That's community power. Now, looking ahead, we'll have an opportunity to celebrate this year's grant recipients during our annual Operation Roundup Awards Night on Thursday, August 6th, I think is what we're looking at right now here at the REMC. We'll recognize the organizations selected during this funding cycle and celebrate the important work they're doing throughout our communities. We'll be sharing more details as we get closer to that event. So this week's question, I'd love to hear from you. What nonprofit organization or community group has made a positive impact in your hometown? Share your answer in the comments. You might introduce somebody to an organization they've never heard of before. Before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Community doesn't become stronger because one person does something extraordinary. It becomes stronger because thousands of people choose to do something small. A few cents rounded up, a few hours volunteered, a few neighbors helping one another. Those small actions add up, and that's exactly what community power looks like. Thanks for joining us for this week's What's Up Wednesday. Until next time, stay safe, stay connected, and thank you for being a member of Southeastern Indiana REMC. I'm BJ Myers, and that's What's Up this Wednesday.